Hello, and welcome to the Butler Collegian Newscast. I'm Nicki Clark. The elections for next year's Student Government Association are officially underway. Candidates for SGA president began campaigning on Monday and participated in a debate Tuesday evening. Junior Stevie Sedlacko and first-year Melisenda Dixon are the two presidential candidates. Elections will take place next Tuesday, March 3rd. Students can vote online using the Butler Engage platform from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Now we're heading over to Kat's Corner. What's going on, Kat?
Some of you may know during this Saturday's Butler men's basketball game, the traditional changing of the collar ceremony will be taking place. This is where current mascot Trip will pass on the collar to new mascot Butler Blue 4. But not many people know the history of the bulldog on campus. It all began in 1919 when Butler fraternity had a pet bulldog named Shimmy, who gained such a name on campus that the university changed their name from the Butler Christians to the Butler Bulldogs, the name that we know and love today. Over the next few years, there were many unofficial bulldogs around campus, owned by parents, students and frats, including Butler Sam, Butler Mike and Butler Bill. Sadly, in the 1970s, the tradition faded away, until 2000, when Butler decided to officially adopt an English bulldog. Since then, there have been 3 bulldogs to bear the name, and with a 4th to assume the name on Saturday and become the face and fur of Butler University. Butler's bulldogs have gained national recognition and brighten up any student's day around campus, a selection of very good boys and girls. Back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Kat. We'll catch up with you again later. There's excitement on campus as Broadway hit play, The Play That Goes Wrong, is coming to Butler from February 25th to March 1st. In this play, the actors attempt to stage a murder mystery, but everything that could go wrong does. Huffington Post claims it is, quote, the funniest play Broadway has ever seen, end quote. Tickets start at $30 and the event at Clowes Hall counts as a BCR for students. There have been some staff changes to Butler's on-campus diversity center over the past year, but students are being reassured that the space will remain open and a place where students can go to feel safe and welcomed. For more on this story, Kat Embree is here again with Jessica Lee to discuss the changes to the department.
Thanks, Nicki. I'm here with our editor-in-chief here at the Collegian, Jessica, and she's here to discuss the recent changes to the Diversity Centre on a story that she's currenther working on. Jess, for those that don't know, can you please tell us a little bit about what the Diversity Centre is and what it does here on campus?
Yeah, so first off, it's located in the basement of Atherton in room 4. And mainly I would say the main purpose of the Diversity Center is to serve as a safe space for students especially, but also faculty and staff to go there as a safe space because there may not be other spaces on campus that they would feel comfortable in.
And can you give us a little bit of an insight into the changes that are happening to the staff down there?
So the most recent change is that on February 12th, Talia Anguiano, who is the Assistant Director of Multicultural Services and Programs, she will be leaving Butler University for another job opportunity in Chicago, actually. So that job opportunity just aligns more with what she envisions for herself professionally. It's also closer to her family because she's from Chicago. So that's been the most recent change. Her last day is on March 6th. But it's definitely not the first change that has happened to the Diversity Center. Earlier in the fall, Tiffany Reed, who is the Director of Multicultural Programs and Services, she was terminated by the university, actually. So definitely different circumstances, but still a staff change. And this all comes after those 2 positions was actually created last April.
Okay, brilliant. And something that students may be a bit concerned about is how this might change the Diversity Centre going into the future. Can you speak about that a little bit?
What's really interesting is kind of just talking with different students and kind of their perspectives. So as I've been working on this article, just really there are many different perspectives. So some students, have worked really closely with Talia or have, come to her with their concerns and just whatever they're feeling with and whatever they have accomplished in their past years or everything like that. So they're really sad to see her go. But at the same time, they understand that this is a good opportunity for her and they just want her to do well in her future.
Thank you for joining us. And if you want any more information about that story, Jess's article will be in next week's paper. Back to you in the studio, guys.
Thanks for joining the show, Jess. Now for an update on Butler athletics, Jake is here for a glance at sports. Jake, how are things looking?
Nicki, I gotta be honest, it wasn't the best week for men's hoops this past week. A pair of losses to Seton Hall and Creighton dropped Butler outside the top 25 in the AP poll for the first time since November 25th. Take things back to last Wednesday against the Pirates. Bryce Golden had one of his best games scoring-wise, 17 points to his name, only second behind Kamar Baldwin with 20. Butler retained the lead in some cushion at several points during the game, leading by as much as 10 points. Still, Seton Hall stayed in the fight with just over a minute left. They held the lead over Butler by 5 points. Sean McDermott was pretty quiet throughout the night, but he knocked down a pair of clutch three-pointers in the final 30 seconds to knot things up at 72. On Seton Hall's next possession, the ball went off a Butler defender, giving the Pirates the ball with 0.6 seconds left on the clock. On the inbound, Sandro Mamukelashvili tipped the ball in at the buzzer, giving Seton Hall the win 74-72, a heartbreaker for Butler in New Jersey. Sunday afternoon, the Dawgs traveled to Omaha to take on Creighton. The 15th-ranked Blue Jays are the top team in the Big East in three-point shooting, and they proved why against Butler. 15 of 26 from deep will certainly get the job done. Marcus Zegarowski led Creighton with 25 points, hitting all 7 of his attempts from beyond the arc. Perhaps the most concerning, however, was the status of Kamar Baldwin. He went down after an apparent ankle injury at the end of the first half and would not return for the remainder of the game. Aaron Thompson also left the floor with a late second half injury, re-injuring his left wrist. In their absence, Butler trailed by as much as 35 points. It drops round 2 to Creighton 81-59. The Dawgs have 3 games left in the regular season to right the ship. They'll still have the Big East tournament to make an impression on the selection committee, but Butler needs to make the most of its final games to earn a higher seed come March Madness. To break down where exactly the Dawgs stand heading into next week, Chelsea Groves is here for another edition of the Collegian Basketball Breakdown.
Thanks, Jake. Hey everyone, Chelsea Groves here with the Collegian Basketball Breakdown. Butler dropped out of the AP Top 25 after the Seton Hall-Creighton road trip. These were 2 games the Bulldogs were not favored in. They looked like a ranked team against Seton Hall, though, but it ended up in a heartbreaker, losing off an inbounds play with 0.6 seconds left on the clock and fell 74-72. As for Sunday, Creighton shot the lights out. Nobody was beating the Blue Jays after going 15 for 26 from 3. Zegarowski went 7 for 7 from deep. Butler struggled to get any kind of offense going with Baldwin out the entire second half with the ankle injury that happened late in the first half. I will say this, coming up a heartbreaker, the 22-point loss and just the downward trend NCAA tournament seeding-wise, a net top 16 team with a 4 seed in the East, now a projected 10 seed in the Midwest according to ESPN's Joe Lunardi. But looking ahead, Butler has a manageable 3-game stretch coming up with DePaul and St. John's at home, Xavier on the road, all 3 teams below Butler in the Big East standings. So take a step back. Butler is an NCAA tournament team, but I am sticking to it. Butler wins 2 of its last 3 games, and everything looks different going into the Big East tournament. Jake, back to you.
Thanks, Chelsea. Butler baseball is off to an exciting 6-0 start in the 2020 campaign. The Bulldogs swept Western Illinois in a doubleheader matchup over the past weekend. Big offensive production came from Brody McGrath, who got on base in 5 of his 7 at-bats. Because of this, he came across for 3 runs in Butler's 9-4 and 6-1 victories. Nick Ortega likely had the highlight of the weekend when he hit a grand slam in the first of Sunday's games. It also had great pitching from Joe Graziano and John Vore, who combined for 13 strikeouts. The Dawgs are scheduled to take on Evansville on the road later this week. Finally, it was senior day for Butler women's hoops, and the squad certainly went out on a high note against Providence Sunday afternoon. All 7 players who saw action put points on the board, led by Umu Torre with 15. Butler had a quick start in the opening quarter, leading 18-12, but the Friars fought back later in the third to take the lead. A strong final frame by the Butler Bulldogs gave them the win by outscoring Providence 19-9. Butler wins its final game at home 51-42. Great stuff from them to win that final matchup at home.
On the road next?
Yep, they've got a pair of road games to close out the season.
That's all for this week's Butler Collegian Newscast. To stay up to date with all things news on Butler's campus, visit us at thebutlercollegian.com or on Twitter at Butler Collegian. I'm Nicki Clark.
And I'm Jake Bedell.
Have a great week, Dogs.